Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka, and this is episode 13, witchcraft. What do you think when I say witchcraft? What do you think when I say sexuality? What do you think when I say spirituality? What's the connection between all of three of these narrative threads? Well, on today's show, we have Gwen Walsh. Gwen is a real witch. She's also a sex educator. We're going to connect these dots. Gwen is really intelligent. She's really deep. She does some amazing work. And I think that once you guys see this episode, once you guys hear this episode, you'll be really impressed at your understanding of witchcraft and how it relates to sexuality, spirituality, psychology. If you stick around to the end of the episode, Gwen actually gives me, your host, a tarot reading, and it's a blast. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Gwen Walsh.
This week's conversation.
Gwen Walsh, welcome to Sex Party. How are you?
I'm good, Dustin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. For the people who are watching or listening, can you introduce yourself and talk about who you are, what you do, and like how and why you got into it, maybe?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Gwen Walsh. I'm a sex educator, a tarot reader, and a lifestyle mentor. And I got into this work because, oh boy, where did I start? I was a women's studies major in college, and I had an internship at Planned Parenthood at a very pivotal time for reproductive health and justice. And that really, I guess, was the impetus for me to dive into this work. And then a little bit later, I got a job as a sex educator at a woman-owned boutique in Portland, Maine. And that was really special. I worked there for a few years. And so I really got to see people's innermost intimate selves and hold space for them in that way and help them to go from a place of shame or confusion into this place of empowerment and confidence. And that was just the most beautiful thing. And tarot definitely weaved into that in the sense of emotional intelligence, holding emotional space, and helping people to feel confident in themselves and their lives. So that's a little summary of where I come from and what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, hear sex educator and they think of like some lady like in front of a class in 1960, like pointing to like, ovaries or something weird, So can you explain what in your definition, what is a sex educator? Like what do you do? And like what is your day-to-day like in terms of being a sex educator?
Yeah, so if I were to define sex education, it would be to provide a neutral and safer space to educate people about sex in all its forms, the exciting, happy stuff, the challenging stuff, the difficult conversations, the amazing conversations and feelings, and everything in between, and help people to get to a place of knowing their own sexual identities, whether they're asexual, polyamorous, LGBTQ, vanilla, whatever, any of those labels or identities or anything else, and to just help them to get to a place where they feel like they know themselves and they can tune into their own selves and make educated and empowered decisions for them. So I'm not telling anyone what's good or bad. I'm just presenting the education based on the medical evidence that's available and based on other folks' experiential evidence as well, so that people can have kind of a broad, neutral spectrum of ideas and education so that they can tune into what feels good for them and know that they're making the best decisions for themselves.
Yeah, so what does that look like in terms of like who I mean, I guess what does your typical client look like? Sure, but like who is reaching out to you and where are they at in their life where they're like, "Oh, I'm going to instead of going to a therapist or whatever, they come to you."
Yeah. So when I worked at the
So
boutique, it was, oh, sorry, what was that?
no. I was like still finishing up or whatever. I don't know
Mm.
why. I put extra so in there for you just so you could have it. So
Amazing.
there you
I will
go.
take it. Thank you. So when I worked at the boutique, it was obviously very toys focused. And so people would come in thinking they were going to have like a Sex in the City, Charlotte, Purple Rabbit experience. And it was my job to say, like, okay, that toy exists. And there's also a lot of other toys. And let's have a discussion so that you know what works for you in terms of power levels, price points, materials, all of those different things. And so instead of saying, like, the Hitachi Magic Wand is great and everyone should have one, it's more of a conversation of like, are you looking for a high powered toy? Because if not, then the Magic Wand probably isn't the one for you, and that's okay. And right now, I still talk about toys and things like that with people, but it's definitely, I think, more focused on the emotional, communicative aspects of sex education in terms of I want to talk to my partner about, say, pegging, but I don't know how to bring up the conversation. Or I want to tell my partner that I'm interested in polyamory, but I don't know how to initiate that. Or any other litany of subjects and ideas that people have that they're feeling kind of a lack of confidence on or a lack of education on. And instead of like, maybe they've Googled and read articles and things like that, but they want to talk to a real person and get some more personalized perspective.
Yeah, well, first of all, have you seen the Sex and the City reboot and what do you think?
Oh, I have. I honestly love it. I think that I know there's a lot of controversy about it. I think that
Sure.
they I think they did a really good job of in a very short period of time, addressing really how those characters would react to this newer world and the different ethics and the different things that are considered appropriate and not appropriate in terms of like ways to, connect with people, the options that are out there. And so I think that the places where people say it was a little bumpy in terms of, character development and the things that
Hmm.
happened, I think that that makes sense because it was a very realistic portrayal of like a 50-year-old, 50-something person moving around in this world that's very different than it was in the 90s. So I really liked it.
Sure.
And I just love Sex and the City anyway. So I was going to like it either way.
Well, we had to ask. Okay, so I think so going from education with like sex toys and like Hitachi wands and like all that stuff, was there a point when you were like, well, okay, I'm into this, I'm good at this, I'm intelligent with this, I feel a connection to this. Now I want to blank. And then you went and sort of started studying other things or like bring other things in.
Yeah, I think that point for me, ooh, I don't know if it was like a specific point or if it was it was probably a little bit more gradual. So my business started as a blog. And so I started writing the blog. I called it the Love Witch blog. And that
Sure.
was, I think, 2018, because I wanted to not just be in a retail store all day. Because that got kind of lonely. I was the only one in there all day. And it was great when I
Mm,
was able to talk to people, but there was a lot of downtime and quiet time. And so I felt kind of this desire to expand my intellect a little bit more. And so I started writing on my blog about different toys, different, aspects of sexuality and spirituality. And I think that was what really inspired me to want to move beyond working in a retail store because I felt like I could reach so many more people in such a different way if I was more virtual as opposed to if I was tied to a physical location.
so were you writing the love and sex blog in the sex shop like lonely during the day? Was that happening?
Yeah,
You
if
were
I
just
had
alone in this.
downtime. Yeah, if I had downtime
Oh,
and I
I
didn't
mean,
have any other things to do, definitely.
that's the next hit HBO show right there. Like just that premise is fucking amazing. You need to like get on copywriting it, like,
I
selling it
know.
to Netflix or HBO. Okay, and so the blog was called The Love Witch, which is an amazing segue to go right into the fact that you are a witch.
Mm-hmm.
So, tons of questions. I'm a really skeptical person, but it's like makes no sense because on the other side of that, I'm like super fucking fascinated and
Oh, I'm
like
the same
really open
way.
to it. To make like, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. So,
Mhm.
okay, so what does it mean to be a witch? Which I'm sure you're fucking sick of this question, but we gotta be basic for a minute and
I
then we can
love
get into
it.
the crazy shit. Yeah, I mean the audience wants to know, right? Like,
Mhm.
hop on board, everybody. We're taking the fucking train. So what does it mean to be a witch? How long have you been a witch? And what brought you to witchcraft? And am I saying witchcraft or is it like a different word I should be using?
Yeah, so witchcraft is the practice, the secular practice, and then the religious
Okay.
aspect of it is paganism or Wicca or Shinto or all of those different things. So being a witch can be a totally non-religious thing. It can be completely secular, but often people will tie it in with a religion. So, like, I identify as pagan, which is kind of a broad earth-based religion umbrella term. And there's like Jewish
Mm-hmm.
witches, there's Catholic witches, there's like all of these different types of witches. So for me, being a witch means, I guess, like the first word that I think of is courage. And not because of the whole like, we're the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn or anything like that. But I see that meme going around a
Maybe a little
lot.
bit in there.
Maybe a little bit, but mostly just like courage to really tune into who you are, to like explore what spirituality means to you, what connection means to you. And for me, a lot of it, if not all of it, is about connection, which, like, of course, the rest of my work in the sex ed world is about connection as well. Connecting with people, helping them connect with themselves and with others. And for me, that really extends into witchcraft and why I work so much with love and love magic, because witchcraft for me is connecting with myself, connecting with the things I desire, connecting with the earth around me, and this like immanence of divinity in everyone. For me, divinity is not this thing up in the sky that we can't touch or talk to. It's in, like, the rocks and the soil and the trees and you and me and this water bottle and everyone. So
Right.
I could talk for a long time about this, so I'm gonna stop myself there, but ultimately, that's what being a witch means to me.
Well, I'll just keep asking questions, so we'll get it out of you one way or the other.
Amazing.
Okay, so can you talk about for as long as you'd like? Can you talk about the realization or the desire to be a witch, or the realization that you were a witch? I know that's different, and I think for the people listening or watching, there's a lot of people out there that are really interested, but they feel like, oh, that's stupid, or I'm
Mhm.
shameful, or my boyfriend already thinks I'm an idiot, or like, or whatever. So
Mhm.
maybe your experience can help those people like embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that you asked that question because, like, I'm as much a skeptic as, I don't know, anyone, I guess. Like, I believe
I
in these
love that.
things. And yeah, right? Like, I believe that past lives can exist and that, like, multiple timelines can exist and all that stuff. But I'm also like, but do they? Like, I'm not all the way there. And I think that's okay. And I think that holding that duplicity of, like, it could exist or it could not. And it doesn't really matter if it does or it doesn't. But I think, so to get into like how I started as a witch, I was in college. I was, I think, a freshman in college, and I grew up Catholic, Roman Catholic. And so I liked the idea of spirituality, but I didn't really vibe with the idea that the divine was some guy in the sky that was like going to punish me for anything that I did.
Mm.
And I like went to Catholic school and everything, wore the knee socks, the whole bit. Um, so I knew a good amount, and I was like, I just feel like that doesn't resonate with me anymore. And so I did some research. I had a very cushy after school job working at the student union, so I had a lot of free time to like Google and stuff. And I found paganism. Yeah, it was awesome. I found paganism and it was Samhain of, I think, 2014, I believe. And Samhain is the witches' new year. It's also Halloween, and it is one of the most special days for witches, whether you see it as cliche or not, doesn't matter.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I went out into the woods because I went to college in a very rural Maine town. So I went out into the woods behind my school, and I just like walked around and like felt, the earth beneath my feet and like the wind on my face, and found like a real nice tree, like a very nice tree, and just like stood and meditated with the tree. It was like totally like I probably like I don't know what I looked like, but it was great. And I just realized like I felt so connected with the earth around me and with myself. And I was really struggling with like anxiety and existential depression at the time. And so to feel this sense of connectedness and this sense of belonging and purpose, I was like, this is where it's at. Like, this is good stuff. I'm a witch. So that's how it happened.
Yeah, I love that. And I think your experience, I mean, fuck, I've had experiences like at the park, like this is amazing, or like when you're just walking, it's
Mhm.
like the wind feels great, the sun is out. Like we all get high as fuck when the sun comes out. So
Exactly.
that's what's cool about your experience is there is that sort of logical, if you will,
Mhm.
aspect to it. Okay, so you're in the woods, you're like, this tree is fucking amazing. I want to learn to levitate or whatever it is. You feel good. You're like, oh wow, I'm a witch.
Mhm.
Um, where does it go from there?
So, where it goes from there is I started doing a lot of research. I started looking into communities. There's actually like a pretty robust pagan community in Maine, which I guess makes sense because we're like in the middle of the woods up here. So I started going to like I did an Earth Day event, just like a very simple little ritual, just honoring the earth. And I went to Beltane on the beach, which is this amazing Beltane festival that they hold on Popham Beach every year, and started reading books. Like I think I started with like Scott Cunningham. And that's like a very typical Wicca author that a lot of people start with. And I started reading tarot, and that was like my social currency because I didn't party or like I wasn't into like football, and those were basically the only two ways you could spend your time at my college. And so instead, I was just like, hey, want to come over? I'll give you a tarot reading. And that was like how I connected with people.
Nice.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're in Stephen King country up there, right? It's like
Yeah, it
every
was
single one of his
actually,
novels takes, yeah.
yep, we're right near Bangor, and he went to my university.
Wow. How
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so all of that being said, this is what's cool about you, I think. Um, and I wanted to get the witch thing on the record before I read this. But if you go to your website in the about section, it says, I am not a love and light kind of witch. In my intuitive and educational services, I don't sugarcoat or spiritually bypass. I embrace the shadow as well as the light, and I help my clients to see the value in each. I will always give it to you straight, and I will always provide you with options to help you problem solve. Your autonomy is my priority. Okay, first of all, fuck yeah, right? But like this, two things. The I'm not a love and light kind of witch, the I embrace the shadow as well as the light. Okay, like that's why you're on the show right now because I read that. I was looking for guests and you were on my list of people and I'm super fucking psycho about who I have on the show. Like these people that are on the show like yourself are like, I don't know, and they're in my version of highly vetted, I would say. Like, I really want to talk to these people. And that was like, okay, I'm going to send this email or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and the not sugarcoating thing, because I'm someone who, first of all, I don't sugarcoat shit. I'm very direct, for better or worse. And also, the, I'm a very I'm I operate in the gray, I think, a lot. I don't really see, like, I've always rooted for the villains, I'm always like, well, we could do this, but we could do it this way. Like, I'm okay with it with that. So
Mhm.
take that how you want, people, whatever. I'm not openly a villain, but maybe, I don't know. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
Mhm.
the good and bad. I always say, like, I'd be an amazing, bad guy or something, but I have good intentions. But
Mhm.
don't all villains, whatever. So I love that statement on your website.
Thank
Incredible.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, super cool. And I think that's important, right? Because people come to you and they're like, I'm going through a divorce or whatever their thing is. Like, I
Mhm.
can't, I can't win the lottery. Can you help me or whatever? And it's like, you need to find a way to be like real, you
Mhm.
know? I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of, uh, you know, readers, whether it's fortune or like tarot or palm or whatever, um, they do sugarcoat it because they want you to keep coming back.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I always I say this to death, I feel like. Maybe I haven't said it that much, but I'll say it again. I see the way that I work with people as like teach someone to fish and you'll feed them for a lifetime. Like, I'm not trying to hook people in to be dependent on me. I'm trying to help people to depend on themselves, to know themselves, and to feel confident in themselves. And as much as they naturally want my support in that, like, I'm happy to do so. Like, if I can get someone from here to here, like, that's huge. And then they can operate here as much as they want to, or they can skyrocket up on their own. Or if they want my support
Mm.
going one step further up, that's totally cool too. But I really think that I've seen, and this is like where I get frustrated with some of the witchy community. I even like hate the word witchy, but like that's kind of just the only word I can use. The
Right.
spiritual community is a lot of it is based on like grab a rose quartz, like buy a rose quartz and buy a bottle of this potion, and that will get you to what you want. And it's like, no, like you should tune in with yourself and figure out what you like, what you feel drawn to. Like, I don't have, massive collections of herbs and crystals and stuff. Like, I grow mint in my garden. I watch how it grows, and
Sure.
I let that relationship with it inform how I utilize it magically. And same with my work with other people. Like, excuse me, I really focus on like the inner self, people's beliefs, people's shame, all of that, because like you can spend thousands of dollars on crystals and that's not necessarily going to help you. So I
Mm-hmm.
really care about like giving people that freedom instead of having them feel stuck and like they have to spend money in order to make a difference in their own lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's giant. That's huge because I think a lot of successful people, and you would know more than me, but in your field, but I think just in general, you know, successful people are healthily skeptical of things, right? And they just sort of take what works and, oh, that's interesting or whatever. And I think that's like, you can be open, which is what I try to be, because I can't lie. Like, I'm fucking fascinated by all of that. And
Mhm.
this show for me is a way to like get people on that practice these things that are really fascinating and fucking cool, and for me to kind of like probe around in their brain and like see what the realities of it are. Okay, so how does can you explain a little bit about how the witchcraft spiritual side of thing, how do you marry that with like your scientific or logical like sex education? Obviously, um, broad question, but I think it's really important because you have that style, right, where you do both. Um, and you can tell that there's an intelligence on both sides. And just like you said, your healthy skepticism comes in handy too.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering, because most people don't realize this. They think witchcraft is like, oh, they're boiling frogs and bone people or whatever the fuck, right? I don't know. But witchcraft, I mean, at least in my very, you know, brief sort of understanding of it, is it's very sexual, right? And then you have the other side where it's like, this is what the science says about orgasm or coming or whatever. So how do you marry those two?
Yeah, so I love utilizing research and statistics to help ground people in reality, if you will. So, like, if somebody comes to me and says, I can't orgasm without a vibrator, like, what's wrong with me? Like, my partner's mad at me, or like, I feel broken or something. Then I just throw it out to them like, "Oh, I don't know what the current number is. I think last I heard it was like 67% or 30%, 30 37% of, people can't orgasm without external vibration or external stimulation, and that makes them feel better about themselves, that like, "Oh, okay, there's other people like me." And then some people will come to me, like fantasies is a big one that I talk with people about, and there's a psychologist named Justin Miller, and he does a lot of work and research around sexual fantasies. So definitely check out his book and his work if you're interested in that. And so
Yeah.
when people come to me and they're like, I fantasize about like my trauma, or like I'm afraid that I liked my trauma or something like that. And then I'll tell them like fear and pleasure are processed in the same area of the brain. And so often the brain will mix those two up. And just like the physical like sight of them releasing that shame and releasing that
Hmm.
pain, and that confusion is just amazing to feel like, oh, thank God, like I'm not the only one. I'm not broken. I'm not wrong. I'm not bad. Because oftentimes, like, nobody has any sex education at all. And often the only sex ed is like porn, which is not bad. It's just entertainment, not education. And so when people come to me and they talk to me about those things, like that's the really important stuff to really ground in the reality of studies and research of like, I'm not just telling them like, it's okay, don't worry. I'm saying X% of people also experience that. You're not alone. And so that really helps. And then the other side of things, like whether it's tarot or spell work or choosing a sex toy or whatever, like there's such an emphasis in my mind and in my work on the personal choice and education. So, like, I'm not going to give everyone a rose quartz, or I'm not going to give everyone a Hitachi magic wand. Like, let's have a conversation about what works for you as an individual. Because, in talking about tarot, for example, somebody could see tarot as like their spirit guides speaking directly to them and giving them these messages and this wisdom. And that's totally cool and fine. And another person could see tarot as a psychological exercise that helps draw their attention to areas of their life that they might not have thought about. And that's totally fine too. The impact is the same. So it doesn't really matter in my mind whether it's a super spiritual experience or a secular psychological experience.
Yeah, because it's like relieving the fucking stress,
Mhm.
and the shame, like you said. They're both
Yeah.
doing the same thing, just from opposite directions. I mean, that's, first of all, how fucking fascinating is what you just said. The fact that sexual desire and like being turned on like comes from the same dark ass place that trauma comes from. That's fucking
Mhm.
cool as hell.
Yeah. There's a
And I
lot of
think it's
like,
really,
was that?
no, it's really important. Please
Yeah.
expound on it.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's Dr. Andrew Pari is a psychotherapist who is doing a lot of like cutting edge research on this. The research of like how we process trauma, specifically sexual trauma, and how that can be worked through like content warning for folks who don't want to hear about this. feel free to pause or skip. But there's, I think it's called the GRET model, GRET, and it's basically a therapist assisted recreation of the traumatic event. And Dr. Andrew Pari has been working on this in research for a while, and he's seen a lot of really profound changes. It's basically the same as EMDR, which is eye movement desensitizing and reprocessing. There we go. Um, he says it's like EMDR on crack. So it's like modeled after a pre-existing trauma healing modality that I've actually been through and had a lot of great healing from EMDR. And so he takes that framework and expands on it in this sense of recreating in a safe and consent-based environment the traumatic episode so that patients can find that sense of control and empowerment, and of course working very closely with a therapist on it. And it's basically shaking loose the memories and the internalized trauma of the actual event and reprocessing that event as something that we have control over so that somebody doesn't have to live with that trauma. And he's found a lot of really great results from it so far.
Yeah, it sounds like an extreme, well, I mean it may be like a extreme variation of like ERP therapy or something like that. But I mean, like how fucking cool is that? Like
Mm.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Again, I'm someone who pulls from my dark side probably more than I pull from my light side, but it's always, I mean, I don't know. I've been called devious and chaotic and whatever. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I am both, right? But instead of being like ashamed of that, I think I learned at a very young age to embrace my inner Loki, if you will, right? Like
Mhm.
my chaos or whatever, and just be that person. And so I've done that, and it's for me, it's been really rewarding, especially as I get older, because it's like fuck, like this feels great. So if you're out there and you're crazy like me. No, yeah, I think the dark side is just as important. Again, to go back to your statement, shit, super cool, super amazing, and I encourage everybody to look into that. I'm going to look into that after the show because it's fascinating.
Mhm.
So I've got so many questions for you. It's crazy. But we will limit them to the good ones if they're good. So how do you feel? Okay, so right now I feel like in our culture, pop culture, TikTok, the gram, right? Um, all the like the girls who were like club girls in 2019 going to Tao and ripping shots and shit or whatever, like now they're now they're like getting a plethora of witchcraft books delivered on Amazon. They're going to Salem instead of Miami for spring break, right?
Yeah.
I fucking love it. I think it's I think it's amazing. I really
Mhm.
do. But being a real true witch, right? How do you feel about that?
I think that it's fine, whatever people want to do. I think that it's not what people do as much as how they do it. So if somebody, I think that it's important to make sure that there is a respect for the practice slash religion, depending on if it's secular or religious for someone, because it's not playing pretend, It's not like a playground game when we're 5 years old. It's fun, like a playground game, and that's totally fine, but it's also serious shit. Like, people can, well, I don't wanna scare anyone, but
No,
basically,
scare
it's
us, scare
important
everyone.
it's important to do your research, and it's important to know how to protect yourself, because when you're working, it's just like, you wear your seatbelt when you get in the car, or you, I don't know, whatever the fuck else we do to keep ourselves safe. You look both ways before you cross the street. It's
Right.
not dangerous to cross the street, but it's dangerous to cross the street without looking first. And so That's kind of what people might not think about, and which is why it's so important to do your research, to work with a professional if you can, so that you don't have to learn all these things the hard way like I did. I've had more than my fair share of psychic attacks, and it is not fun. And it was because I just did not know how to protect myself. I didn't have a grasp on the energetic sensitivity of witchcraft and paganism, and working with different energies, and like traveling to different physical locations as like an energetically open person. And so it's really important to do that research, and to also do research when you're getting into like different communities. Just as there are problematic figures in every community, there's problematic figures in the witch and paganism world. So it's important to make sure that you're not approaching it as, this is fun, I'm going to fuck off with witchcraft for a while, but instead of like, okay, let me learn about this, let me research it so that I know that I shouldn't just channel Lilith on a random Friday night, or I shouldn't just like, speak the name of that one Norse god that I'm not even going to speak his name because it's not a good idea.
Yeah. So, okay. So, one, let's go right back into your traumatic, psychic, scary experiences. And again, this is a podcast for adults, fucking unedited, whatever. I mean, I'm really curious. So please take the wheel and roll.
Yeah. So and again, this is something that I am totally fine with people being skeptical about. That's totally fine. It's
But
my
you're a skeptic,
experience.
so this is great.
Exactly. I'm like, well, that could have been this, that, and the other thing. And then I think about it and I'm like, it really couldn't have, but still maybe. And so my worst one, I will say, was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. If there's anybody listening from Fort Wayne, Indiana, I'm sorry,
It's
but I will
already
never go back
scary.
to your city. uh, so haunted as shit, can't do it. It was this like very like one of those communities where every house looks the same, where it's almost like creepy. It was creepy. And we were I was on a road trip in college. And so we didn't have the money to stay in a hotel. So we were staying with family of friends. And the father was like dying of pancreatic cancer or something like that. So there was a lot of like death energy around the house. He was still mobile and talking and everything, but it was known, unfortunately. Um, and so we got to the place, and just immediately, it was like between two houses and they looked the same. So we had to like see which was the number. And I was like, please, please, like, please don't let it be the one on the right. Like, bad vibe, don't want it. And then my friend was like, it's the one on the right. And I was like,
Oh
oh,
no.
amazing. So we went in. Um, and just like all of these things started happening, like weird shit, and like weird shit with the window, like hearing sounds like something was slamming into the window, but there was nothing. And then like leaving the room, like walking right out of the room for like half a second, not hearing anything. And then coming in, and like the screen of the window was like, I don't know, bashed in or something, where it's just
Wow.
like, there was nothing. There was nothing there. I heard no noises. But anyway, all night I was like hot as hell. And for me, like I normally run cold. And so like if you see the movies, it's always like, oh, it's getting cold, there's a ghost. For me, it's if it's hot, if I'm like unnaturally hot, it's something bad. Specifically like a bad ghosty thing, spirit, whatever.
Hmm.
Because I'm always cold. So like it doesn't really shock me if I'm cold, but it shocks me if I all of a sudden get really hot and I stay hot. Um, and so I was like tossing and turning all night, like bad vibes. And I had a blue lace agate crystal, and I just felt like I needed it for protection. I was like, last ditch effort, just gonna put this under my pillow, protection. And when I woke up in the morning, and I pulled it out, there was a blood red crack in the top of it. Like it was the color of dried blood, and it was not there the night before. So
Wow.
Yeah, so that was not fun, but the story's not over. We were going downstairs, we were about to leave, and I was carrying my bag down the stairs. And I remember I wasn't like trying to challenge the spirit or whatever it was, but I remember thinking to myself, like, thank God we're leaving. Like, this thing can't do shit to me now. And then, like, 2 seconds later, the dad who was dying of cancer like comes up to us and starts talking to us, engaging us in conversation. And obviously, like, it would have been impolite to just leave. Like, he let us stay with us. So we started talking to him. And within like 5-10 seconds of us starting to talk, he was like maybe 5 to 10 feet away from me. Like, I could not see his face because there was just black everywhere. And so I like fainted, blacked out, whatever. I don't know what I did, but I couldn't see anything. And so I was like, I remember I was put in a chair, and my friend was like putting ice on my head and like trying to feed me grapes and stuff. And I just remember being like, I need to get the fuck out of this house. Like, bad vibes. And so we like went out to the porch, and I still just was not feeling it. I felt like I had like Rosemary's Baby in my stomach. Like, it was just
Wow.
all just an array of not good. And finally, I remember talking to my friend, and she always ran hot. Like, when we were in the car together, I would always be like cranking the heat up. She'd always be like cranking the AC, and it would be like a back and forth endlessly. And so I remember asking her, I was like, weren't you dying last night? Like, it was so hot. And she was like, no, it wasn't. It was fine. And I was like, bad vibes.
Yeah.
And so finally, she realized that I wanted to leave. And so she was like, all right, like, we're going to head out. And within like 5 minutes of leaving the house, I was totally fine. Like, stomach didn't hurt, like, totally clear, totally fine. And I was fine for the rest of the road trip. So that was
Wow.
that. Yeah, it was
That's a
awful.
that's a doozy.
Yeah.
That's a fucking doozy.
Yeah.
Um
It's just like terrifying to lose physical control of your body. And that's only happened to me twice in my life. The other time was in Cedar City, Utah, where I also spent the night in a haunted as fuck place. So
oh wow.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Utah's scary, nonetheless. So is Fort Wayne, Jesus. Yeah. So okay. So if the club girls are listening, and they're messing around with spells or whatever, it's like Crystal and Miranda will say like, uh, they need to like protect themselves. Like how, right? Because like I could just see somebody like half-assing it, right? Well, let's make a
Mhm.
TikTok about whatever and sit in a circle and da da da, and then for a
Mhm.
month afterwards, there's like a demon loose in their pantry or something. Like what? Like what? How do
I
they
thought you were
protect
going to say a
themselves?
demon loose in their panties.
Well, I feel like that could happen without the spell, probably, but you
It's
know.
true. Oh my goodness. Well, what I would say is so there's kind of two. Are you okay?
I love it. I love it.
Amazing. All right. So there's kind of two, I guess, degrees of strength that you can do protections. There's kind of like a daily one, which I usually do, which is just like a simple shielding, which is what people are usually referring to when they're talking about like, imagine a white light around you. And so, like, if a white light works, if like a bunch of little stars works, if a pink light works, whatever, but just imagining or visualizing, if you will, some sort of a shield around you and seeing it until you feel it, and doing that like in the morning when you wake up, in the evening when you go to bed. Obviously, like, I don't remember to do it every day. That's fine. But it's a good practice to get into, especially if you are actively doing energetic work like this. And the other one that I usually rely on is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And that one's a little more involved. You can definitely look up the steps online on how to do it. I refer to it as like energetic Clorox because it just like blasts everything out. It's real great. Like, that's what I use. Like, if I had known about it at the time of Fort Wayne, I would have done that. But I didn't. And then there's other things like veiling, which is literally just like wearing a covering on your head. It can be like a hoodie, like putting a hood over your head. That's fine. And a lot of people enjoy that for like the psychic crown protection. And anytime that you do psychic work, like tarot reading or any sort of spell work or spirit, whatever, make sure you close down, like close off the psychic connection, ground yourself. That doesn't mean that you won't ever feel things. Just like I can do a tarot reading perfectly fine if I don't do my entire long ass psychic preparation. But especially if you do that intentional psychic opening, make sure that you close that down. I learned that the hard way too. I
Right.
always forget. And then I'm like, why am I exhausted? And it's like, oh, I didn't close down. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe like just study a little more instead of use any of the handful of items that Gwen just presented. Like maybe don't go for the best TikTok over being safe. I don't know. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah, respecting what you're working with. Like I said, I do not recommend that people, I know Lilith is a big figure in spirituality, especially feminist spirituality. I wrote my thesis on Lilith and feminist spirituality, and I would not recommend that people casually channel Lilith. Like it's just not a good idea. My
Right.
relationship with her is she's like over my shoulder, but I don't work directly with her. I don't, do like partial possession or anything with her. Like I would recommend not. Um and so just like doing, of course, like if somebody has a really close relationship with Lilith, they might feel comfortable doing that, but I wouldn't recommend it especially for a beginner. And so just like learning those things, not jumping the gun. Like if you want to get into witchcraft, go for a nature walk, like see what you feel, develop your intuitive languages like clairvoyance, clairsentience, all of that stuff. See where your energetic and intuitive and psychic talents are, and develop, like, see who the deities of your heritage are. So like I'm Celtic, so I work a lot with like the Morrigan, who's a Celtic deity. Those are all really great places to start. And like, if you like crystals, like go for it. Crystals are a great thing to use if you feel drawn to them, but don't go for like the like necromancy and possession work and like channeling and all that stuff before you really learn how to do it safely.
Yeah, really, really strong advice from a pro, nonetheless. Okay, so in a brief explanation, just for the audience, who is Lilith, or should we
So
not talk
Lilith,
about it?
yeah. Lilith is a Hebrew demoness. She's not a goddess. She's not a goddess like Aphrodite or Hera is or anything like that. So she is technically a demon. And a lot of people really like working with her because she was the original wife of Adam. And she refused to lie beneath him, literally and metaphorically, during sex. And so she was cast out of Eden, and the the story as it has been rewritten from people who do work very closely with Lilith and have channeled her, is that Eve is Lilith and Adam's son. And so Lilith, seeing Adam trying to have a sexual relationship with his own daughter, was like, fuck no. And so she
Right.
asked Azrael, which is Satan, Lucifer, whoever, to go to Eden as a serpent. The serpent is the symbol of liberation through wisdom. And the serpent told Eve, eat this apple from the tree of knowledge so that you can become aware that your own dad is trying to fuck you. And so
Right.
that,
Yeah.
of course, was turned into Eve did a bad thing and she was bad and
Mm.
she made all the. So, if anyone's interested in that, I would recommend reading the book Liber Cain. It's Liber space Qayin. It's also available for free online. And that is that kind of feminist retelling of the Adam and Eve story from the perspective of Lilith.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly powerful character, right? But like, you
Mhm.
don't want to accidentally like channel like Agatha Harkness or something. Like, you would be so fucked, you know? Like, that's
Exactly. Exactly. Lilith is
yeah,
definitely a figure of, she in my experience, she's very helpful for understanding those common experiences of social exile and rage and trauma and all of those things, and
yeah,
reclaiming one's autonomy. And at the same time, she is not an easy deity or an easy entity rather to work with. She's very tit for tat. She's very like don't piss her off, which like don't go pissing off any entity or deity, but like I would not recommend like people seem to I don't want to say throw her around, but people seem to very casually refer to her and say like, "Oh, work with Lilith." And it's like it's not that it's bad to work with her. It's just that it's really important to respect her. Just like you don't go playing with venomous snakes, you respect them
right.
and their beauty and their power, but you don't go poking them or like, skipping around with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to have even like I would argue the more you don't understand something, even if you don't believe in it, at least have some sort of respect for it, right? I mean, that seems like a very easy one, right? Okay, so jumping from there, what are some sex practices, I don't know, that people would be like think that are weird or gross, but when you look at them through the lens of witchcraft, through spirituality, it's like, oh, that I see the value in that. That makes sense. Like everyone always talks about like period blood, like drinking period or something or whatever, or painting or whatever, and like you know doing stuff with cum and like all of these things in witchcraft. Everyone's like, that's crazy. I don't fucking. But then when you look at it again through that lens, it's like, oh shit, wow.
Yeah. Well, citing my most popular blog post, the is period sex, blood magic, all of that. It's not to save you 1,500 words of writing and reading. It's not. So there needs to be an intention there. So you're not going to accidentally do blood, sex, magic, but the power, the benefit of working with one's own menstrual blood is that it is that, life force of yourself, that kind of really powerful life force of yourself. And of course, being safe, hygienic, and energetically safe while working with any sort of blood, your own or whatever. But one can work with period blood in like candle magic. And like you said, if you want to do some fun finger painting. I can't really because my nails, but like if anyone wants to, that's totally fine. But the one that I would probably recommend most is working with like candle magic. You can, utilize menstrual blood and candle magic as kind of like a self dedication ritual, self protection. I would recommend keeping it solo because you are working with something that is binding, like binding for you and to you. And so it can be a really powerful practice to do like a self-dedication ritual if you really want to come back to yourself, really honor yourself and your self-worth and ritualize that like I'm going to take care of myself from now on. I'm going to put myself first from now on. I'm going to always remember my worth from now on. That can be a really great way of doing that. And the first one, when you mentioned like practices that are maybe seen as taboo or whatever, it's not really taboo in like the sex positive world, but masturbation is definitely very stigmatized, unfortunately, in the world at large. And that is the best practice that I can think of out of like all of them because it's a relationship with yourself. It's helping you to understand your own sexual identity and preferences and develop that love with yourself. I know there was one of my friends who also worked at a sex toy store at the same time as I did. I can't remember how this came up, but she said that her favorite sex partner is herself. And I was like, genius. Like, yes, that
Yeah,
we should put that in a book or something, carve it into stone or something.
right.
Because it really is true. And you can spiritualize solo sex through like working with crystal toys like chakrubs or doing solo sex magic, which is a really powerful practice and a very popular practice. I have a whole masterclass on that. So it's something that I teach a lot. And it's a very powerful way of working with one's own sexual self and one's own spiritual self at the same time.
Yeah, that's fucking rad. That's awesome. So can you give maybe like one tip that you think like focus on like masturbation? Like how can people masturbate better, right? How can they have
Mhm.
I mean it shouldn't always be about the orgasm, right? You should just sort of discover, sure. But how do people masturbate better, get in touch with themselves better, but also like come harder, and like fucking thrive from it, like feel good about it? What's a great tip?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend like paying attention to sensuality everywhere. And so, like, even when you're not masturbating, like, obviously you don't have to remember this all the time or think about it all the time, but kind of seeing everything as a sensual experience and not seeing your sexuality as like an acquaintance that you meet with once a year, but rather like a friend that you tune in with every single day. And so, whether that's like enjoying pleasure from like the warm shower water on your skin, or like the pleasure of like how good the flowers outside smell, or whatever, getting a massage from yourself or someone else, whatever, like tuning into those sensory and sensual pleasures can help allow sexuality to feel more accessible and more full and holistic when you do engage with it. And for specifically masturbation, there's all of these techniques. There's like edging, which is like getting close to orgasm and then kind of backing off, and then getting close and then kind of backing off, and doing that however many times you want to until you finally orgasm. And that can lead to stronger, more powerful orgasms. And I would also recommend like exploring the entirety of, if you will, kind of your pleasure map. Like, what does it feel what does it feel? How does it feel if you play with like the back of your neck? How does it feel if you play with your nipples, your inner thighs, internal orgasms, external orgasms, all of those different things? Because having that kind of broader ability to experience pleasure can help us to tune into it even more, and rather than only having one specific way that we orgasm. And like, if somebody finds that there's only one specific way that they orgasm, that's totally fine too, but you can still really enjoy and have fun with all of those other sensations as well.
Yeah, you're awesome. That's fucking
Thank
amazing advice. Like, you can tell you're a professional. You've been doing this a while. You can tell. It's really great.
you.
Okay, so before the interview, I sent you an email about doing a tarot reading for me.
Yes.
So if you do your thing, do your thing.
You got it. All right.
I've never.
So I'm just gonna
I should totally preface this real quickly. Sorry to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
the two times, so one time at a Christmas party, someone wanted, it was in my hometown in Ohio, the big professional, kind of badass psychic from my town wanted
Mm.
to do a palm reading, right? And so there's like 100 people at this like corporate thing too, and she opened my hand and she was like, okay, and then like she's like, wait a minute. And then she just started screaming, like, ah, like literally, like got up, the table knocked over, and she left the fucking party. Okay. Um, we had
Wow.
sort of a weird relationship after that. I never really got to the bottom of it. And then there was another time again at a party. So maybe that's the
Mm.
fucking, the connective tissue here. Somebody pulled a card from a tarot deck. I wasn't really paying attention to the cards. I was kind of looking at them, and they were like, "Well, that can't be right." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" They're like, "No, we need to stop. Let's restart this later." So both, just to let you know, I don't know what's going on in here, but it's good setup.
I love that. Okay, and that gave me plenty of time to shuffle, so thank you. I'm just
Of
gonna
course.
tune in real quick. All right, cool. So do you have any specific It's always like a little nice little jolt. Do you have any specific
Yeah.
questions?
I mean, I have a million, but I don't know. Like, um, yeah. I mean, can they be about anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in a really strange place right now, so I guess I'm just wondering: is this going to last forever? And if so, should I drink more alcohol? I don't know.
Amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Usually I would ask more questions, but since this is everyone's watching, I totally understand we don't have
Sure.
to do that. I'm going to start with these three. So for me, half of the tarot reading is before we even flip the cards over. So what I'm getting from this, like when I opened up psychically, I got this like lovely little, like I said, like just jolt of energy, and that usually doesn't happen. So like I think your energy is just fine. Um, and what I'm getting from these, I pulled three cards. This one in the middle, like for some reason feels like bubblegum, like pink bubblegum to me. I feel things a lot in colors often and images and
Sure.
stuff. So it feels very like joyful, happy, fun, all of that good stuff. This second one feels like kind of similar to the first, but almost more like a serpent energy. Like, doesn't mean bad, but just kind of something that adds a little like flavor and spice or something like that. And then this third for like, will it last forever is when I pulled it, when you asked that. It feels like a desert to me. So I'm getting this sense of like, the desert as this place of like barrenness, but also this like blank canvas that people can have these. I mean, like people do Burning Man in the desert for a reason, like these transcendent spiritual experiences that people have like literally since, the whole Jesus in the desert story. The desert has been this like liminal space for transformation. So I think that's a really cool trio that we have here of like that
Yeah.
serpent imagery as that like wisdom, kind of mischievous, but also like wanting to get you to another level. And then this like pink bubblegum fun stuff. And then this like transformative sort of desert thing. So you want to see what the cards are?
Of course.
Let's get into it. Ooh. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Very interesting. Okay, fascinating. I love this. Um, I always do that. My poor clients on Zoom, they're like, "What? What is it?" So,
I'm very
what we
patient. I'm a patient wolf. I'm very, very patient. So,
I love it. So, what we've got here for the center one, this like bubblegum pink one, is the Fool. And the Fool is this awesome card that is all about like intuition, faith, starting new, and self honesty and self intimacy, and like tuning into your instincts and utilizing that as kind of your way of being, as opposed to trying to control everything around you. So the Fool is Arcanum 0. So this is the figure that can travel anywhere. The Fool is seen as the figure that undergoes the entire journey of the tarot. And we've got this little white rose of York here, which is this rose of like purity and honesty. And it's also present in the death card. And so there's this kind of understanding of life and death, kind of like the Stoics say, like memento mori, like know and remember that death is part of life so that you can truly live life. We've got this little dog, which represents the attunement to the instincts. And the Fool is wearing this little victory laurel, if you can see that,
yeah.
which, yeah, represents like victory. And, he's not on a path of destruction or anything. And even though even though the environment around him is kind of harsh and hostile, he's got this nice warm sun and he's kind of looking up like into his divine. And he's not worried about whatever's off this cliff because he's tuned in with his instincts and his desires. He's tuned in with his faith and his intuition. And he knows that like if you're not living, you're dying. So what
Yeah.
do you think about that for that like fun bubblegum pink sort of card?
I couldn't agree more. I love that. I own every single piece of that, from the title of the card to the fucking hat. Like, we are in.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
Totally. Totally
amazing.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Fool is really great too, because like if we look at like literal medieval times, the fool was the only person in the court that could be honest with the king without worrying about getting their head chopped off. So there's this like levity and joy, kind of like that bubblegum pink color, that
Right.
allows the fool to be honest and actually get shit done instead of, sugarcoating and lying to themselves and to others and everything. They're able to be honest even with king figures and not die.
Yeah.
So we've
Right.
got that. Yeah, we've got that, which is super cool. This
Love it.
next card, which is that serpent sort of card, is really cool because we do actually have a serpent in this card. It's the Lovers reversed. So I'm just going to hold it upright so you can see it. So if we see
Right.
that little serpent right there, we've got this kind of like Adam and Eve, Raphael sort of blessing their union. And the Lovers is actually not about love and partnership. It's about like union with oneself and with the kind of duplicity of the self. Like we all have different sides of ourselves. And the Lovers is kind of about the journey of like meeting yourself, unifying with yourself. So, like, somebody who's, not living in alignment with what they desire and want and all that is probably going to feel pretty fragmented. Somebody who is like living in alignment with the things they believe in, doing what they love, spending time with the people that they love, really feels like they're being themselves. They're going to feel this kind of like sacred union of all parts of themselves. And so, this reversed, I really like this, and I think that this to me symbolizes that kind of serpentine influence, like those little maybe mischievous things, those little things that kind of like come in and shake things up for you, come in so that you can reevaluate how tuned in you are with yourself if you're living in alignment with who you are, what you want to do, what you love, your mission, your purpose, all of that. So like don't be afraid of those things. Not that you are, but like the serpent is definitely a polarizing figure. Some people see it as like
Mm-hmm.
dangerous and bad, and other people see it, like I said, as that liberation through wisdom. And the fact that like there's literally a serpent in this card, I think is really cool of like affirming that, especially since we were talking about the whole Adam and Eve story. And
Yeah.
you were talking about how you feel like you're a bit of a devious little devil or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, totally. But I think, everything you said is dead on, because it's like, like I said before, instead of like, I need to be better, I need to be a better person, and like whatever. I never did that. I was just like, fuck that shit. Like, I know what I want. I know what I'm doing.
Mhm,
I'm very kind. I have a great core, I would say, but I'm fucking devious as hell. I like to have a good time. And,
mhm,
if we can get to a great place by taking a shortcut, like, then we're gonna take that devious fucking shortcut. That's just how I am. And
mhm,
I think that when you, like, just like you said, when you accept, that's the one thing about being chaotic, is that the world is chaos. So when you can take the fucking hits and then reverse them and push them in your direction, you sort of learn, how to really play the hand that you're dealt. No pun intended with the
mhm.
cards, but like, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
So
think that's
I
really
agree. I love
important.
it.
Yeah, and it makes sense with this third card that we've got too, because this I really see as not doing what you are expected to do, not doing what's expected of you, not conforming to societal pressures or whatever, but instead being kind of like not fluent, fluid is the word, adaptable,
Awesome.
constantly transforming, just like the serpent constantly transforms its skin. And so, through that, finding this peace and alignment within yourself, because you are able to navigate all of those ups and downs and sidewayses and all that, much like this fool character. The fool is kind of like the ever wandering figure, and people are going to project feelings onto that. You might see like someone who's doing the van life or whatever as like irresponsible, or you might be envious of them because they're living this free life that you're not if you're working in like corporate or whatever. And
Hmm.
so seeing that and the both of these very airy, adaptable, fluid characters for this kind of desert, future oriented card, we've got the 10 of Pentacles reversed. And this is really cool because I see this as you really reevaluating and actively deciding your own legacy, your own impact that you leave, because the 10 of Pentacles is very much about legacy. The 10 is the completion. So these two other cards that we've got, the Lovers, the Fool, those are both major arcana cards. And so they represent long-term big picture themes in someone's life. Something like this is a minor arcana, the 10 of Pentacles. And so it represents a much shorter term situation or circumstance in someone's life. So for the, is this going to last forever? No, short term. And also like the ending of a cycle, because the 10, like I said, is the completion, everything coming to fruition so that one chapter can close and a new one can begin. So the 10 of Pentacles, Pentacles being earth, they relate to like money and home, finances, career, the body, physical health, sensuality, and also like how safe we feel in ourselves and our environments. So this 10 of Pentacles upright, it usually indicates like attaining everything that you want, like this multi-generational family that's like really established, but this person is still kind of looking out into what's next.
Mm.
And so this being reversed as this kind of desert sort of feeling, I think that any discomfort that you might feel right now is because you are in this liminal space. Kind of like the desert is not the most comfortable place. It's not like you can get, water or Starbucks wherever you want. It's the desert. And so it's uncomfortable, but it's also, like I said, this place of transformation, because it really forces us to get back to this Fool, this like raw, real base core of who we are without any of the bells and whistles or designer jeans or Starbucks or whatever. And so in that, we really get to reevaluate and decide like, where am I going? What's my next move? What's going to make me feel safe and excited and secure and all of those good things so that you can pursue that prosperity in your life. So I would definitely say one chapter is ending and another one is beginning. And so any sort of discomfort or like growing pains you feel are natural. And this is a really great opportunity for you to really tune into that life purpose, that joy, that sense of union with yourself, so that you can start this Pentacles journey again in the best way possible and really set yourself up for success.
Wow.
There you go. No
That's
screaming,
that.
no, you're gonna die tomorrow, none of that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that was that was very great, and I like truly thank you very, very much. And yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, maybe like my energy is like, I don't. Who knows? Like I could. It was very strange. It's strange that happened twice, and all my friends are like, well, you need to go and see a psychic or see if it happens again. I'm like, dude, I don't want to like have a blowout with lady and knocking over crystals and whatever. I don't need that in my life. So I just never, but I recently found out that a relative of mine that passed, for like a good portion of his life, like he was actually seeing a psychic tarot advisor, so
Mhm.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Super, super cool. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. It was very on brand, I feel, for me.
Absolutely, you're welcome. And yeah, I know we didn't have a whole lot of time today, but usually in a tarot reading, at least the way that I do it, we would have more of a dialogue of like, how does this feel? What other questions do you have? Like, do you want to know more about this or the other thing? And so it's very much like a co-created experience of like,
Yeah.
what do you want? How does this feel to you? Because if I say something and you're like, I don't get it, or like, I'm not sure what that means, I want to make sure that you leave our session feeling empowered and good and not just feeling like, what was I listening to for the last 30 to 60 minutes?
Yeah, no, that's amazing, especially for everybody watching and listening. Like, if they want to attain your services, that was a little taste. So thank you again.
Mhm.
Okay, so this next piece is like we're getting close to the end here, obviously. This next thing is a new segment I've been doing. It's called the Burner. I mean, who knows? I'll probably change the name. I don't know. The name, especially the Burner for a witch, is like not a great name. But little witch humor there. But it's 10 to 12 questions if I ask all of them. They're like kind of stupid, but also kind of challenging, but more fun, but also kind of personal.
Mm.
Some are the same questions for each guest. As I move there, it's very like tuned to who you are. What I've been able to pull. So you have the option. We can do the burner. You can go through the burner, or you can pass. The only thing is you have to answer each question. You have to be truthful. That's all I ask. So it's up to you.
Let's do it. Why would we not?
Yeah, I don't
Is it
know. I
like a
mean,
lightning
I
round?
feel like so you don't have to. This is really like this. We're celebrating you on this episode, so it's like your fucking show. You can do whatever you want. So if you get caught up on one, sure, take your time. But like it's probably better to kind of zip through them,
Yeah,
because they're
I'm excited.
goofy.
Hell
Okay,
yeah.
here we go.
All
Question
right.
number one: Are vampires real?
I mean, I guess it depends on like folkloric or energetic. I'm gonna say no because like I'm all about the Dracula, Carmilla, all of that. And so that type of vampire, no, but vampires are always based in reality. There's a lot of like underground racial tensions, like xenophobia, fear of like disease, and that is all encapsulated in the vampire. So actually, changing my mind, yes, but not in the way
Mm.
you might think.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, name something you wish men would stop doing.
Something I wish men would stop doing, thinking that sex toys are offensive to them and their abilities. They are not, they are simply an addition.
Yeah, that's just okay. Name something you wish women would stop doing.
Oh, that's a good one. I thought of another one for the men, also dick pics, just don't. But women, let's see.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a pretty universal one though, I feel like. Something I wish
right.
women would stop doing. Oh my gosh. Accepting bullshit, like overworking
Mm,
themselves, not advocating for their pleasure, like I wish that women would know that they don't have to put up with anything, whether it's pain or being overworked or feeling like you have to be perfect or feeling like you have to adhere to a certain body type. Don't put up with it. If you don't like it, if intuitively it feels gross or bad, don't do it.
fucking amazing answer. Um, Name something you wish you would stop doing.
Oh, something I wish I would stop doing. There's a lot, clearly, going through the Rolodex in my brain. Something I wish I would stop doing, playing small. I grew up in a situation where it was literally a survival tactic for me to appease the people above me and to play small. And as a business owner, that is not helpful to do that, to be like, oh, I'm not that great, whatever. So that is something I really wish that I would stop doing, pretending to be small because some part of me still thinks that that's going to ensure my survival. Trauma.
God, I fucking love that answer.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to this last part of this little section of the burner. Name something you wish your fellow witches would stop doing.
TikTok. I
Hmm.
fucking hate TikTok. I'm sorry to anyone out there that likes TikTok, but I just can't stand it. But that's not really a witch thing. That's more of a general population thing. So, I guess for witches, like, oh God, there's so many things, and I also don't know. I think like, I wish. Oh gosh, again, the Rolodex in my brain. I'm just like, oh, I can't
Yeah,
pick
it's probably a
one
lot of
thing.
things.
Um, ugh, I guess like homogenizing things, like saying that, oh, you should get a rose quartz if you want love, or like, oh, you should do this, that if you want this, that. Like, no.
Right.
Yes, rose quartz is great for love. And like, I do understand that, like, by, listing a bunch of witchy tips, you're more likely to get attention on the internet. And that is understandable. And at the same time, I wish that there weren't those like homogenized rules, quote unquote. And then instead, people were like more emphatic on the emotional and spiritual skills of choosing, the materials that work for you, and more focused on the why, not the what, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like more real thoughtful witchcraft, less American Apparel witchcraft is what we're talking about kind of.
Mhm. And cultural
Okay.
appropriation. Can't stand
Y-
that either.
y- yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. Name a person alive or dead, so anyone, anywhere, to have sex with, spend time with, learn from, but you only get one day with them. 24 hours.
Oh, oh. Uh,
This is really tough. This is a really tough question
this is,
because
yeah,
you,
right? All the people alive or dead. Whew. Oh my goodness. Hmm.
and obviously, it's you to have sex with sex party, sure, whatever, but also too, there's also like the other pieces of that, like to learn from their sexual energy to.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, that is a tough one. Okay. Oh. I will say there was one person that came to my mind, but I also like instantly rejected this answer as well.
Mm.
It was Jim Morrison, because me and my dad love Jim Morrison, but I also recognize that he's kind of also a piece of shit. But I just feel like it would be so, I mean, I would ask him to get tested before we did anything, because, Jim Morrison.
Right. Yeah.
But I just feel like he would be such a fascinating person. Like, I would either
Yeah.
just gain so much, like, it would be so fascinating, or I'd be like, wow, you're the most boring, like, asshole person I've ever met. I feel like it would go one of either of those ways. But to think of someone else, like, that would take me a long ass time.
Well, no, that's a solid answer. I mean, no one here gets out alive. Jim Morrison. I mean, come
I
on, that's a
know.
great answer for
I
you.
think
Kind of on
because,
brand
like,
for you a little
he's
bit.
been kind of an icon in my family for so long, because, like, my dad loves his music, and, like, I grew up listening to him. But would definitely be fascinating.
Yeah. No,
Either
that's
that
a
or,
great
like,
answer.
Marvin Gaye, just, like,
Another
classic.
solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both solid answers. Have you ever drank a partner's blood?
No, I have not. I am not Machine Gun Kelly. I will not. I
Say
just
something to one of your yeah, well, I mean, it's like a whole thing. Again, these questions are like, wait, what? Say something to one of your exes.
Go to therapy.
It could be boom. Okay. Have you ever read someone's tarot deck and been like in your head, like this lady's totally fucked?
Actually, no. The closest person that I have definitely read for people where I'm like, this is a shitty situation, but it's more like if I know the person and I know that they're not going to do anything to change the situation. Like, pulled, I've never read cards for someone and based on the cards been like, oh, you're fucked. But I have based on what the cards say and how well I know the person, and knowing that they're not going to do anything to change the situation or listen to what I have to say, that's when I'm like, oh.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Do witches have better orgasms?
I would say yes, because we take more time to learn about ourselves and to tune into all of the various sensations that we possibly could.
Great answer. And finally, how liberating does it feel to be naked in a forest?
I've never been naked in a forest, only in a campground lake surrounded by a forest with my
Well, that
coven one
counts.
year. That counts. Yeah, close enough. It's awesome. So awesome. Full moon, sparkling lake at night, forest. It's so good. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it sounds fucking incredible. Gwen Walsh, that was the burner. You made it through. You answered all the questions. Respect. Thank you very
Amazing.
much.
Thank you.
Um, okay, Gwen. So where can people find you? Maybe touch on the services you offer.
Yeah, so I am mainly existing on Instagram. My Instagram is Gwen Walsh, just my name, GwenWalsh. No underscores or extra letters or anything. And my website is gwenwalsh.com, same thing. And right now I am offering both single session readings and consultations, 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and also longer term one-on-one work, which is a combination of tarot and mentorship coaching sort of thing. And that is either 6 weeks or 3 months. And I'm actually going to be launching my very own How to Read Tarot course around mid-April, maybe late April. So if anyone's interested in learning how to read tarot from yours truly, definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for being here. I would love to have you back. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to next time.
Yeah, see you soon. Gigantic thanks to my guest this week, Gwen Walsh. Gwen is amazing and she will be back. Thank you, Gwen, for being on the show this week. If you guys are, if you're digging, if you're into, if you're loving what we're doing with Sex Party, you can subscribe on platforms like Apple and Spotify and Stitcher, anywhere else that you're listening. You don't have to, but you can. You can rate the show. You can give it a review. It really helps the show grow. It helps me out. It's pushing it out to more people. So I appreciate that if you do. That's amazing. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. How are you doing this week? I love you guys. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to the show there. You can like the show there. You can leave a comment. Again, you don't have to, but it's much appreciated. It helps the show grow. And I love you for it. If you want to say hello personally, you can reach out to me in the DMs on Instagram. And I can't wait to see you guys back here next week. I'm already looking forward to it. Love ya. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.